you get the main outside edge, and as before you get the 3 lines in the middle, which are crease lines. But for this die you also get a set of little dots there, and they create a wonderful tiny little piercings, not great big holes, but tiny decorative little piercings when you cut the shape. You get your outside edge, so that can be your solid outside edge, plus you get a decorative panel, as you can see here, so you can cut the two together. And on the solid piece, I don't know whether I'm trying to lift up to show you, you've got like a faux stitching effect, and that leaves a really lovely crisp, slightly cut, slightly embossed detail, so it'll look that way round. And then obviously this is the panel, put that down, that you would put your sentiment on, and these are the sentiment parts. I'm just going to get them all up so we can actually have a look at them. So you could leave that plain and you could do your own mount. So the sentiment part comes in 3. You get your outside edge, which, swap over, which has that faux stitch detail again on it. You then get a inner panel, as you can see there, so that could be another matte or layer, or if you cut them one after the other you're left with a very delicate panel. And then finally you get your sentiment. Now your sentiment count, unlike the other 2 sets, cuts out separately by itself. You don't necessarily need the other 2 layers to do it, and it will cut out by itself. And it reads, my book of special memories. So that can be standalone by itself, or matted and layer on all the other bits. As with the other sets, the smaller side has its own cutting edge, but for this set it's split into 2 parts, so the detail, you have 2 parts to it. So you can cut both together to create a decorative panel, or you could cut that, or you could cut that and leave this bit clear. Lots more choices. These wonderful strips, so each of these strips are different, so you're not getting a repeat of each other. And this little strip here, to match in with the set, I'm just seeing if you can see, also has the faux stitching around, so it does cut but doesn't cut all the way through, so it gives a lovely, oh, it's a bit hard to see until you see it done, gives a lovely decorative piece to it. You get your smaller dies, and again these are done to cover the different cut areas that you've got, to add like a form of rigidity, or as I said before, these make like wonderful buttons, that faux button effect. And these make, I always use these in one of my albums to make like faux bubbles on the mermaid album, because it looked just like that, and great way of using up those scraps of card that you just don't know what to do with. So if we measure in new money, it is, and I mean a smidgen short of 24 centimetres, so 23.9 is 13.2 centimetres. So they're a good sized die. It's not quite square, but it gives the illusion of being a 5 by 5, 5.5 by 5.5 album with some lovely decorative edges. Okay, so what did I make? Move that. I decided this time that I would use it and I would make a baby themed. Now, when I said to you before about all the different layers, let me get them back in again, of these 3 dies. 1, 2 and 3. So, and that you didn't need all the other, these 2 dies to cut out the sentiment. So that's the first die, and that cuts out, oh, let's do it the right way around, that cut out my base layer. The second die, as you can see, would cut out the white layer, and then what I did was I then cut out the sentiment in white, and that left me that tiny little border. Let's lift it up and see if you can see, all the way around my sentiment. I then recut my sentiment again in black and just layered it over the top. I'm going to apologise now because this will shine, because to protect this one I've actually made an acetate cover. to hide all the different elements, because I've used the pieces as is, as it were, and I haven't created longer bits at the front. So I've got my back, and sorry, that's my thing there, and I've used one of those dastardly little buttons we get on our dies, because I found one that says designed with love, and I thought that suited, and I've just punched a hole and put that through, but we'll come to that in a moment. So I've taken the main die and cut it out. So from when I've made it, it's got this smaller bit on the front wrapping round to the larger bit on the back. As you can see here, I wanted to show you how I made it, this one, so I haven't put the decorative panel over the side yet. So you can see the middle there, embossed line, and if you don't crease it, it still stays nice and sharp. But what I did was, I have actually cut it again in acetate, and then I've joined the acetate covers to give it, as you can see, a bit of protection. But because I wanted the front to be fully protected, I've actually cut the main part twice. So I've got the main part on the back, the bigger part, and the bigger part on the front. And then that covers the whole of my detail. And to keep the acetate in place so you couldn't see the glue, I've just used some little decorative elements and a button I found in my stash. And I've just wrapped a bit here. Now these are what I was saying about those small dies. Where are they? This one here. So this one here has made like those sort of sliders, and I've just used a thin piece of card and just threaded them through, and they just make a lovely decorative element. And I've just put a little bit there to match in, and I just thought they were a bit of fun. So my page, front page, is not using the main die. I've used the smaller part and I've matted and layered it, but then what I've done is I've done a square panel to sit across. So when you open up the die, you can see that there's the part there, open up the die, sorry, the front page. There's the smaller panel there, again matted and layered, and here is the other side of the square. And I've done my mat and layers using the stitch square layering dies. This is from the Memory Book 2 launch, when we had all the other elements that went with it, and it comes up with the photo frame and the film strip and some of the other words that cut in. So it shows you they go across, and I've mounted that, and as I keep saying, I never stick it all the way so someone can put their photograph in. Now this little bit here is where I've cut pages down. Just going to get this bit. And I've cut them straight across here. I've been left with this little bit here. And I thought, oh, waste not, want not. I've actually put them there as a way of mounting some different parts onto it. Now, I'm going to see if I can lift this up to see if you can see. But can you see the lovely stitched edging around the outside of the piece? So it does cut, but it doesn't. So it makes like a slight nick. And then you can see on this side those tiny little decorative dots that go down the side. So for this page here, I've used the main die, and I've cut a piece of card. I'm going to get the main die. And then what I've done is, from the start there, I've made another crease so I can use that to go on the inside to create my flap. So it is magnetic, so again a simple mat and layer. There's those little dies again, making like some decorative ribbon folders, and you open it up here. So all my folding is now been hidden by making another flap here. So journaling, straightforward, another journaling, and then you can see another part of the page there, and then this decorative element there is just really to hide all my gubbings. It's not there for any other feature. But what I could have done, and now with hindsight, was taken one of the strips, let's see if I can find it here, and I could have cut down, and I could have had the holes there, and I could have put a decorative strip there, and threaded, well, one of the cards through, and that would have added another decoration to it. So this is like my first page, that flap goes over, That seals with a magnet, and that's the front of the book. So when you open it again onto the other pages, again dies from the Memory Book 2 launch. I can't remember what it's called. It'll come to me and I'll put the link below. And using again the stitched frame, square frames, because they went beautifully with the stitching, I thought, that comes with this die set. I've made a pocket this time using both pieces and just created some journaling pieces, journaling cards to go in. Again, still incorporating those dies, and from the accessories, the little paper clips that came with them. I think they were genius. Talking about these dies here, I've got the little dots there, and they've just added an extra little focal point, so you don't have to use them to do threading if you don't want to. So onto these pages, which are straightforward matting and layering, just using the outside edges to create my mats and layers, and again using the same square die set. Very similar to the inside of the front cover, where I've used that element there that I've cut off, and another word, and again another pocket with some other little mounting cards to put in there. So the layout of this is very, very similar. Another square, but on this one I did something different. I've used the same squares, but I've made a frame, and I've put acetate, and on the acetate I've just actually put some little cards that you can put photographs on. I've used the tabs that were also part of it, and that sits in there, so you can see through your book if you wanted to, or alternatively you could fill the whole space. And I've mirrored it on the opposite side. This acetate, if you don't have the super strong stuff, use the packaging your dies come in. Just give it a bit of a clean, and it's super tough and works brilliantly. So that's the middle there, and then I've just got a normal square mount. So this one here, I originally said it was a smaller die, and I fibbed, sorry. It's the larger die. So I had a scrap of card that I could use. So I've used the larger die, and what I've done is I've created, see if I can lift it up, I've created a cut in the backing plate, and then I've put my crease underneath it so you can't see how I've created that page. That, as I was saying before, do you remember when I was saying about if you cut it out, and I've just gone around the edge with scissors, creates those lines there. And I thought, just from one strip, I just made that little bit of extra detail by using up scraps. Well, it gives you a better idea. And I've done it again because smack bang in the middle there is the magnet, and it hides it. So that sits on top of there, and this opens up. So I've created a journaling page using the dies for the sentiment, or the mounting plate for that, and then again still the stitched frame dies. And as I said before, the main reason for that is they just went beautifully with the stitching on the main layers. On this side, rather than as this one I've created a square mount, I've actually used the photo cell and created myself a little slider that goes in and out, again putting those words in, so once the slider's in there you can see them, but the person can put the photograph in, or the photograph can go all the way, and it is double-sided. On this side, just a straightforward square mount, and again using up little bits of paper, I've created the folds. Now I'm going to be honest and say I have cheated a little bit. Don't know if you can see, but this isn't a backing paper. This was all off-cut strips I had from creating my pages. So all I've done is I've glued them together to make a new backing paper and then cut it out. And once mounted, you would never know. So that's another canny way of making your papers go a little bit further. And finally, another little magnetic bit using up papers, and I've just to give you an idea, I've just used little strips and another little slider down there as a decoration, and that just goes over like that. And here is more of that paper that I made by joining all the pieces together. I finished off there, whether you can see, is that decorative strip, that long strip with the holes in, and it just shows you if you wanted to, you can take those small elements and cover over. So it gives you like a form of a mock eyelet. And I just think that's superb. Even if you didn't use it for threading ribbons, I just think it's a wonderful little decoration in its own right. And finally, my little button that we get with all our dies. So it says, designed with love, punched a hole, put it through. And I think it goes beautifully. And anyone would think it was done deliberately. Well, that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. So for this book, I have used the main outside die, and I've matted and layered the papers. So if I had this side showing, I use that side next, so on and so forth. And they've all lined up, if you can see inside the spine, on top of each other. So it does make the spine rigid. I've cheated a little bit, and where they met in the middle, I've just cut out some strips, put them down there to hide any joins I've got, and then as you can see, they feed round onto the back. Again, if I'd thought advanced, I could have used one of those dies that made the little holes, which would have looked brilliant as a decorative border inside. So the only thing I've got left to do now is just put a covering strip over here to hide all my gubbins. If you've got any questions, again, just leave a comment below the video. I will put some pictures up on my blog, or you can leave comments there. And I hope it's given you a better idea of what comes with the dies. Thanks for watching. See you soon.